Hello and welcome to this episode of the Get Savvy show. We are having some technical difficulty today, but sometimes just we have these things thrown at us, but we have to just overcome them. But we decided to do it anyway because me and Sharon, we're that sort of people. We just get on with it and see what happens. And what's the worst thing can happen? So today I am joined by Sharon Gaskin from the Trainer Company, and we're going to be talking about getting savvy about training and finding trainers and all that world. So without any further ado, I think I should bring Sharon on to join me. Hello, Sharon.
Hello, Mark. How you doing?
Yes, we're finally live after a load of faffing about, but hopefully we won't have any more technical difficulties going forward. But nothing's for certain in this life, so we'll see what happens. So welcome. We're going to be talking about sort of getting savvy about training and how that fits in with what you do. So before we do anything else, then just tell us a bit about what you do, Sharon.
Yeah, what do I do? Well, I run a business called the Training Company, which helps freelance trainers to create and grow successful businesses. Started about 10 years ago when I realised that trainers love the bit where they're in the training room, obviously doing the delivery, but don't really like the bit where they have to go out and get business. So I guess is something that's quite you know, common amongst all small business owners. We probably
Mm.
find that that's the bit that people don't really like to do. So I started a business to help them do that, and it's really kind of grown over the years into a much bigger business than I even envisaged. And I have a really smashing membership community called Training Talk, and you are one of my Training Talk members, and in fact one of my Training Talk local leaders for Bristol, which I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Yes, and we'll come back to the story about how it all came about because it's sort of by accident, wasn't it? But the best ideas in business sometimes are that they weren't planned, but they just came about because they were due to or they had to. It was the right thing to do, wasn't it? So we'll come
Yeah.
back and talk about that in a second. But before we do that, what we always do on the show is delve a bit into motivation and what motivates you, Sharon. So we did this session not so long ago in the Trainer Talk community, did a live session, and you were brave enough to share it there. So now we're sharing it to the world. Um, so
Okay.
these are Sharon's top three motivators. These are what drive her. These are what get her out of bed in the morning. So firstly, the top one is the spirit. So freedom, autonomy. The middle one there, friend, belonging, friendship, relationships are important. And thirdly, the searcher, which is the meaning and making a difference, doing something purposeful. So the question is, Sharon, how do these three motivations get fulfilled in your business?
Well, first of all, when I saw that, when you revealed that profile to me and in front of everybody at Training Talk Live, I just thought that is absolutely bang on. It was just so, I couldn't believe how accurate it was. So the spirit, yeah, is obviously my top one, and absolutely. I guess you probably find this, Mark, that most business or small business owners do have that, really, really high up because I certainly found that one of the many reasons I started my business was to be able to take my own decisions and do what I want to do. And, if you've got ideas, not having to go and run them by other people. And, I actually really love that. I just love being able to wake up in the morning, think of an idea and go, you know what, I'm going to try this. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And you can't always do that when you're working, in a corporate organisation, can you? So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I really love that. The friend is obvious because I'm a people person, and that's why I set up my Training Talk community. And so having being surrounded by good people, like-minded people I can help, supportive relationships, that's really, really important to me. And that's very definitely being filled by not only the Trainer Talk community, but other communities that I belong to.
Mm.
And the searcher, yeah, definitely. So, stuff that, making a difference. And again, through the Trainers Talk community and the people that I work with, I've seen some of the things that, well, I mean, I think the most obvious example was obviously through last year, 2020, with the pandemic. I mean, people woke up on March the 12th, and were coming into the community and going, "Oh my God, I've got no work, I've got no work. My diary has been decimated." And there was that huge feeling of panic, and it was classic change curve stuff, wasn't it? We went through the shock, the panic, the denial, all those sorts of things, and slowly move forward through to acceptance, and then doing something about it. But really, it was the community, and you'll know this because you're a part of it. Really, really came into its own at that point. In fact, I coined a hashtag made for this moment because it felt like that. But people all obviously knew Trainers Talk was there, and some participated more than others. But it was just at that moment, everybody really pulled together, and it was just a real sense of support. And so many people said they wouldn't have actually got through the year if it hadn't have been for the Trainers Talk community. And so that, for me, is it fulfills my need to really make a difference to people's lives.
Yeah, and I reflected back to that time. You showed some great leadership, Sharon, because that there was a bit of panic setting in with a lot of people having their work schedule evaporating, literally, wasn't it? It was like cancellation, left, right, and centre. So you held everything together and held the space. That was the important thing that people were looking for. The support was fantastic, and it's still going on, but it's a great community for that respect, that everyone is there to support one another, and that's again down to how you nurture and run the group and the organisation. So absolutely brilliant. And that, as you say, the spirit motivator is really strong quite often within particularly entrepreneurial sort of mindseted business people. But I think also we know what your lowest motivator is, and that's the defender motivator. So you don't like stability, so it almost like makes that change thing even more powerful, which is you have to be aware of, because you might just go into things for the sake of it. But also you did say, I think, going back to the TT Training Talk Live, was that the irritation that comes from people that don't take chances, that comes up now and again, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think you described it, or it's described in the profile as like bureaucracy, and I can't be doing with that. And I never liked it in my corporate days. It's just like, oh, just get on with it. It's like really, by the time we filled all these forms in or talked about it, or we could have done it. And I'm just a big believer in experimentation. It's like I would rather try something, and if it doesn't work, at least you've tried it, rather than just agonizing and going round in circles and not taking any action. So and having your own business allows you to do that, doesn't it? So
yeah, absolutely. Right, okay, so let's get back to the topic. Is really about, I suppose, training businesses and how they work, and the role that you play in that. So you mentioned about Trainer Talk. So what's the ethos behind that? Why do you think that? Why does it exist for the first instance?
Yeah, why does it exist? It exists because primarily I had a vision, really, and still do, a very, very strong vision for the community. And it came about because I was way back in the day, about 2009, or even probably even before that, when I had my own traditional training business. And I'm sure, like you, Mark, you do a lot of networking, and everybody tells you to go off to networking events. And I was doing a lot. And what I found was that at these networking events that I was going to, they were very much about what I would call business card thrusting, and people kind of sell you stuff, and asking you how your business was and how things were going, and I and I guess that many of us, when somebody asks us that question in that kind of environment, what do you do? You know, you say, oh, it's great, isn't it? Oh, it's really good. It's great. I love this. And everyone knows
Yeah.
it. And you know, I very definitely have tons of times where I'd go along to those networking events and my business, you know, wasn't great. And, you know, I did have struggles and challenges, but I didn't feel that I could share them in that kind of environment. It wasn't really, you know, the done thing. So I sort of thought, well, you know, wouldn't it be nice if there was an environment where people could have an event that people could go to where, you know, that they could actually feel safe, saying, do you know what, things aren't great at the moment and I actually need a bit of help. Who can help me? So, yeah, so that's what I did. So I set up the first Trainer Talk Live, would you believe, in 2010. So that's in March, it'll be 11 years. And it was really, that was where it started. And I did really want to create this safe space where people could come and also like-minded people, so people within the same industry, you know, so all trainers coming together because they would all, you know, talk the same language, they all have similar challenges and issues, and so people would absolutely get, you know, where everybody was coming from. So that's how it started, really.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning about, you know, you started off not necessarily having a paid offering, but there was realization when you met your accountant once where you said, actually, this is you know, not quite what I expected to do, and it's costing money, and you had
Yeah,
to make a decision, didn't you?
I did.
And go just tell the story because I'm gonna. There's an
Yeah, yeah.
analogy that's really important here.
Yeah, well, I'm not very good, and I'm glad you shown my three thingies, whatever you call them, and you know I'm not very good at you know, at the finer detail,
Hmm.
and you know, so I'm you know, and like many trainers, you know, we look at it where we are running events and we're running courses, and you get that great feeling at the end of it, don't you, when you run a great event or a great course and you drive home and you're driving along, you go, oh, this is great, and it's all lovely and wonderful. But what I wasn't really very good at was the other bit, which was actually looking at the finer detail and looking at how much money I'd made. And I kind of knew that I hadn't really made a lot, but didn't really want to confront it. Well, finally I did.
Mm.
I was shocked to discover that for all the work that I was putting into those 4 events a year, I was making £1,000. And I just thought, oh, God, this is just like, I've got to change this. But also, the other thing that wasn't happening, which wasn't quite fulfilling my vision, was obviously that I wanted to create this community. And that wasn't really happening either because with it being an ad hoc event, people had come and then they wouldn't perhaps come back, not because they didn't have a great time, but because, you know, trainers being trainers, they don't, you know, they think, oh, what if work comes up on that day? And I've been meaning to go along to that, and then they never get round to it. So I realised that if I wanted to create this community where these fantastic relationships would be built up and it was a true community, then there would have to be commitment, because you can't have a community without commitment. So I decided that I would turn it into a membership. This is 5 years ago now, and I decided at the end of that year I would make a presentation and, you know, at the last Trainer Talk Live of the year, and say, you know, this is how it's going to be, and going forward it's going to be a membership, and the idea is you join and then you get your events included, and but it will be more money, and you know, you can still come ad hoc, but it'd be better if you remember. And as I was standing up there doing this, it was one of those awful moments where I just thought, oh God, why am I doing this? This is just horrible. And everybody was looking at me with those faces, and you know, I didn't feel that I was getting a particularly warm reception. But I'd already resigned myself to the fact that, do you know what, if I can't turn this into a membership, then there's going to be no more Trainer Talk Live, because I can't just carry on as I am. But fortunately, then one person from the back of the room raised his hand and actually stood up and said, I'll join. And that person was Paul Harris, who's still a member today. And then closely followed by Kate Young, who's also still a member, who also stood up and said, well, I'll join. And it was at that moment I just thought, oh, fantastic, I've got my first 2 members. So, I'm going to
Yeah.
do something
So, yeah.
like
Great
that.
story.
You
Brilliant
know,
story. It reminds me
yeah,
of. Have you seen the video of the guy that's prancing on the side of a hill? He's doing his silly dance, and he's just doing his thing, and then all of a sudden somebody joins him and starts dancing in the same way. And
right,
then it's the power of leadership. So once you've got one person, once
yeah,
someone joins, all of a
yeah,
sudden people
yeah,
say now feel comfortable. That one
yeah,
person, the first person that puts their hand up or joins you is so
yeah,
crucial. Once
yeah,
someone's done that, it then allows us. Oh, right, okay, and then you get that people that actually I want to be part of this as well. So it
yeah,
reminds me of that story, and it's a brilliant story. And obviously here we are 5 years later with a very successful business, which has a really important role to play with supporting
mm,
trainers.
yeah,
Okay, so we know now the history of the trainer company. So you're running a membership, as you mentioned, and
yeah,
with regards to obviously, that's a membership that a trainer can join.
yeah.
So what's your role do you see within it now, being that you are sort of leading that sort of membership?
Yeah. Well, it's a funny thing actually that's happened. I mean, you mentioned there, during the pandemic, and that I had to step into the role as leader, and I find that is sort of happening more and more really, and I do actually have some support now. So I have a team, people who kind of, which I didn't have before, so sort of helping me. So, but like you, I can't use one of my team because you're a training sort of local leader, so I don't run those local events because they're at 17 locations around the country. So I have other people to help me now. But one of the really, really nice things that happened, and I think this happens in many, many memberships and communities after a time, and if you have the right kind of people within your community, is that it can be, even though I'm still really active in it and do a lot and provide tons of value, and I'm always nurturing people and running events and etc. The community to some extent has become self-supporting as well. So it's really that there are so many people in the group now who's, for example, so many people have stepped forward in the last year, people like yourself again, who have volunteered and said, oh, can I speak at Trainers Talk Live? Or can I run a spotlight session, which is one of the monthly online sessions we do? Can I, Kate Young, I'll host a virtual cuppa, for people. So it doesn't have to be me all the time doing everything. I still do a lot, but it's really nice that people are actually feeling that, they can step in and they can do things to support other members. And, I think that's absolutely fantastic. And I always say, the message that I always try and give people is that it is not my community, it's our community, it's ours. So it's as much, for everybody else to sort of lead the way in their own way as well as me, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, I think there's if you talk about a leadership model, which I talk about, is the 4 steps. So you have to start with a vision. So that has to be someone
Yeah,
has to set the vision, but
yeah,
that sort of third stage is when the actual members or they start taking responsibility themselves. That's when you really know that you are transitioning from almost like delegating as opposed to being that visionary. And it's really
yeah,
really important to understand those 4 steps. And when you see that transition, you do have to adapt and be different in how you show up, because you can't keep showing up like you were at the early stages. You've got to adapt, and obviously that's what you've done. So which is great.
yeah,
So let's
yeah.
talk about trainers then. What do you see as the challenges for trainers at the moment with what's going on?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, it's the same old challenges as we always have, pandemic or no pandemic, and that's obviously getting work. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt about it. That the training industry has been really badly hit. by the pandemic for obvious reasons, because we can't all be in a room together. But, thank goodness for technology, which has enabled, which has saved many people. And there were already obviously lots of trainers, myself included. I've been really lucky because I've always had an online business. So, I've been using Zoom for years, probably before it was a thing, so I've been really lucky there. And as I say, there've been lots of trainers in the community who've been doing similar things and have really, upskilled themselves over the last few years to deliver virtual training. Well, they were very happy because they could just sort of switch over like that. Now, obviously, there have been other trainers who, haven't had never ever run a virtual training session in their lives before, and so the last year has been, in one way, challenging because they've had to learn new skills, but in another way, really, really exciting because I think. Certainly in our community, there have been so many people who are doing things now that they never ever would have envisaged doing this time last year, and just the sort of the confidence now that people have, that because there was a huge amount of fear before, but now people are getting to grips with stuff, and because they're doing it successfully, they are now feeling a lot more confident. And there are so many people out there that have sort of said, "Oh, well, I don't really want to go back to face-to-face training. I love this virtual stuff." And although there are other people that go, "Oh, I really missed it and I can't wait to get back in the training room." But I think I think it's been a really, really interesting time. Because obviously it's been challenging, but there have been a lot of positives, and I think it has changed the training industry, forever really, because I think some companies, will go back to face to face, but I think it's more likely that organisations will go back to a kind of hybrid of stuff. And I think some training will be face to face, and some training will be virtual, even when we get back to normal. And that's a good thing. I think it's good.
I think you're right, and I think it's the same with networking. There was a pushback from taking networking virtual as such, but now everybody's doing it, and there's you have to do it, and like you say, it's bound to stick around because it's worked. We've proved that all these things now work, and like someone said, I heard someone say the other day that what's happened is that probably what was going to happen in 5 years happened in 5 months, or maybe less than that, because we had to adapt. So it's just hastened probably what was on the horizon, but now we had to, we had to embrace it, I suppose.
And I mean, there's been so many trainers, haven't there, in the community who, like, for years, have always said, "Oh, I'm going to get that course of mine online. I'm going to get, virtual training," and it was always something on their to-do list that they never actually got round to. And now all of a sudden it's like, "Oh my God, I've got to do it now, and I've got no choice." And so it's and it's actually been really, really wonderful to see. It's been lovely to see everybody's journey really over the last 12 months. It's been an interesting time, challenging and for a lot of us, but interesting as well.
I noticed that most trainers now talk a lot about video editing, which didn't seem to be topical a year ago. And other things are like you mentioned, online courses, which I've got into, and once you embrace it, it's and yourself, you've created a course to help trainers transition. How I see it is transition from just being a trainer to actually running a training business. Is that true to say? Yeah.
No, absolutely, because there are, I think again, this is a lot of people, particularly this year, certainly in the early stages of the pandemic, it was because people had that time. They had time at home, they had time away from the business because, they weren't in the training room every day doing the same old stuff, if you like. It just allowed people to just sort of, reassess things. And there was a reassessment, obviously, around virtual delivery, but there for a lot of people that I've spoken to, there's been a reassessment about, that they want a proper business. They want a business as opposed to just being a contract trainer. because one of the downsides of being a contract trainer is that you are not really in control of an awful lot. And okay, this year has been extreme in that probably there has been a lot that we couldn't control anyway. But there's something about having a business and you are being more in control of your own destiny. And so, we've created this program, the Complete Trainer, which really gives a trainer everything that they need to sort of, to move from being that sort of contract, freelance trainer into having clients of their own, having a proper business, learning how to, have proper systems in place, doing their marketing consistently as opposed to just when they haven't got any work, outsource stuff to people, mindset we're going to talk a lot about as well, because honestly, Mark, and I'm sure you're the same, the longer that I have been in business now, the more I realise that most of it is what is going on up there, isn't it,
Absolutely. And you just said the M word, the marketing word, and also the sales thing is the other thing. There's a mindset around those two things. And when you're selling something that you're actually, it's not about selling something you're not selling something, you're solving a problem. That's, I see, as the biggest mindset change with regards to training, as opposed to thinking that you are charging something for a course. You're actually not. You're charging someone because they need a problem solving, and that's how I approach it anyway.
No, and it's so true because you're helping and supporting people, and it's almost like, why wouldn't you want to do that if you had something that, if you've got something that can really help that person or that organisation, why wouldn't you want to tell them about it? Now, whether or not they want to do anything with it, that's up to them, but you should make the offer. I came across something brilliant the other day, Mark, that really made me smile. Somebody was talking about selling and people being scared of selling and reluctant to sell. And she said, it's like, can you imagine if you went into your town centre and all the shops were closed? And in all the shops there was a sign on the door that said, "Sorry, we're not open today because we don't want to offend you with trying to sell something."
Yeah.
That was brilliant because can you imagine? Because that's exactly what it is. What it would be like, wouldn't it? How frustrated would you be? We don't want to offend you.
Yeah. As a previous shop owner, I get that analogy, and obviously it's just ridiculous, and it's a great way to remember that's what you're doing. If you're in that mindset that I can't sell, then that's what you're actually doing. You're putting up the shutters and putting the sign up. So that's brilliant. I think that's a great way to wrap things up. Before you do go though, Sharon, do you want to tell everybody that might catch this? Or who's watching? We have got a couple of watchers, I think, or who catches this in the replay, where they can find you.
They can find me if you go to the trainerstrainingcompany.co.uk. That's the website, so you'll find all the information on there, including, or you can obviously the usual social media bits, so LinkedIn Sharon Gaskin, Facebook Sharon Gaskin, Facebook the Trainers Training Company. And if you want to book for Mark's Trainer Talk local, we say it's in Bristol, but it is a virtual event, so you don't go to Bristol.
Virtual Bristol,
22nd of January, isn't it, Mark?
It is, yes, and I will drop a link in. I won't do it now because I haven't got it to hand, but I will put it into the comments. So if you're interested, all the details are there, and we will be talking a little bit about marketing, about how you're showing up in that meeting. So if you're interested, check that out. Jeanette's here and she's already shared the link. Bless her. Thank you, Jeanette. Perfect. So the link was already there. You can find all the not only mine, but there's lots of other events going on around, and also the main events which happen 4 times a year, as you mentioned. So thank you, Sharon. Thank you for your time today.
Pleasure.
And I look forward to catching up with you soon. But for now, I'll let you go and have your tea.
Thanks a lot. Take care, Mark. Bye.
Thanks, Elaine. Bye.
Bye.
Great. Thank you, Sharon, for joining us. I really enjoyed that. Now, we talked about memberships, and as you've just seen in that short video, the Get Savvy Club is now very close to opening. It might even be open by the time you watch this. So the Get Savvy Club is a membership all about self-leadership and team leadership. And I will drop the link in. So if you're interested in joining that club, then it'd be great to see you in the club very soon. So that's the Get Savvy show for today. Thank you those joined us. Thank you for any comments. Any comments that you want to leave, we will get back to you, either me or Sharon. If there's any comments or anything that you want to know more about, then feel free to leave a comment and we'll get back to you. But for now, I will bid you farewell, and I will see you very shortly on the next edition of the Get Savvy show.